Let's take a deep dive of this 2019 Chevy Silverado. I'm looking at the chassis here. Let's talk about a few features that are new this year that you may not notice immediately when you're driving a new pickup, but they can make a difference long term. And so we have new aluminum control arms. So this is where Chevy's using aluminum. They're not using it in the body, in the panels. They're using it in places that they can save weight, increase durability, and it makes sense. And so we have aluminum control arms, which are moved up higher on the shock towers. And so you should have a little bit better ride and handling there. We do have the coilover springs with the shocks. Moving back, we do have wheel blockers here. This will prevent the tire from getting into the cab. It's a safety feature. We also have the prevention here in the front in safety. This will stop for front overlap crash testing. If you were to hit an object, it won't go through the cab completely. We have the Callee Converter comes in right in here. I'm going to flip this camera around, make it a little bit easier for me to show you these features. All right, that's better. So we have Callee Converter. We're going to connect that with our dual exhaust. These you can check out in a video I'll put above. It explains what the O2 sensors are. It explains what this baffle is in here. So we're coming back. We have this is the 5.3 liter V8. It's connected to the 8-speed transmission with a 2-speed transfer case. Interestingly enough, there is a 1-speed transfer case for 2-wheel drive models, and that 1-speed transfer case has a feature of train select. And so as you select a train select what you're driving on, this is from marketing, this is what they're telling me, is that will, it doesn't replace 4-wheel low, but it actually changes the transmission shift points and the throttle input to have better traction on different road surfaces. If you're doing a 2-wheel drive, you're going to have a different setup here, but there, like I said, there is a train select button there as well. Another big feature here is, if you notice, this is a fully boxed frame. What's nice about that is that they're able to drop the weight. They've dropped 450 pounds overall. They've dropped some weight throughout this frame by using some high-strength steel, and this makes this frame a lot more rigid. Okay. So when you have a rigid frame, what this is going to allow the engineers to do is really work on riding and handling for just the wheels, just right here, the control arms and the way the shocks are and the way the springs are just on the wheel. With the solid flex of that, no flex anymore in that frame, so it's a solid frame, they can take away that variable and just tune just the handling, and it makes it a little bit better ride pickup. That's what you're seeing, like with Ram's doing it, Chevy's doing it here as well, is that used to be frame flex was kind of a good thing. You had some flex, you weren't such a hard ride. Now they've been able to drop the weight, which allows them to box the frame, take the weight elsewhere and box the frame and get rid of flex. And now we're creating a better ride quality because of that. Moving along, we have a baffle here. There's another video on this, which again was the video I have above that you saw. This changes the sound that's coming through the exhaust note for dynamic active fuel management. That's, I think, their active term, or dynamic fuel management. Sorry, that's their term. Anyways, as that engine changes as far as number of cylinders are firing, it's going to change the way the sound is going to come out of the engine. And so this comes through, and as a spring, it opens and closes, and it changes the sound, and so it makes it more of a consistent sound and a better sounding exhaust. And so we have our cross members. We have our spring hanger for a muffler. We do have the shocks here. This is interesting. They've been doing this for years, and I did some research today, talked to one of the engineers. And if you notice, we have the 2 shocks, there, and they're opposing shocks. So they're opposing shocks. So there's some brands of pickups. Ram I think it's done it for a while, and I could be wrong, correct me below if I am, but that the shocks were actually in the same position. So they're both on the same place, going up and down at the same angle. In this case, when you have them opposing, it stops wheel hop. And so if you have a big engine in front, which you do on this pickup, and you hit the gas, the way the springs are, you can actually hop the rear end. The engineer was telling me, Tim Herrick from Chevy, that he noticed that back in like 1967 when they're doing Camaros and things, that was when they changed that direction of the springs, or the shocks, to eliminate wheel hop, and that's why the shocks are in different places. and different angles. And they're more vertical, so the more flat you get them, the less reactive they are to working. You're not getting the full length of the shock. So they're more vertical, and they're opposing, stops wheel hop, and you really use the entire shock. Okay, so there's our shocks. These are the Rancho shocks. So this is going to be the Trail Boss edition, because we know we have Rancho shocks, and we know we have a 2-inch suspension lift, which is going to be right here. So then there's the rest of the frame. Here's our connections with the big bolts that bolt on for the receiver hitch. And this, like I said, this massive piece of machinery here is your 2019 Chevy Silverado frame. And there's one other important thing here. This is a composite second stage spring. And so what happens in here is it's a lighter weight versus the steel spring. This is on LT models and above, and it just creates less weight and it creates a better ride quality. Passive exhaust valve.
So right ahead of that muffler, and that cutaway is the I'll say what you can see externally for this passive exhaust valve, and this is kind of like a throttle in the in the exhaust stream, and the purpose of it is it's for noise noise mitigation when you're in AFM, right? So the normally closed, or it's a normally closed valve with some bypass, of course, right? And then when the airflow gets high enough, that starts to overcome the spring force and open that valve. Does that make sense?
Okay, yeah. And then can we go back here real fast?
Yeah.
This is you said a double brick, but you have a really technical term.
Yeah, this architecture for this catalyst we refer to as split volume common can, and the split volume is because we have two different catalyst bricks, two separate catalyst bricks.
And O2 sensors. And then for those wondering at home, that is a different connection. Sorry, get my glass out of the way, but this is a different exhaust connection, so you can't mount the same engine up. The same old exhaust up with the new exhaust, just it's different architecture. Very interesting. So there you go. There's your deep dive in the 2019 Chevy Silverado. I hope you enjoyed checking out the chassis with me. I find this stuff really interesting. Make sure you follow us on pickuptrucktalk.com, on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, all variations of pickup truck and SUV, or pickup truck plus SUV. And make sure you subscribe if you want to see more of the Chevy Silverado. I got tons of videos coming out on this. Send me hate mail at tim@pickuptrucktalk.com, and also comment below. Love reading hate mail. Thanks for watching. We'll see you down the road.